mode as a kid.
Yeah, hi, I'm Malathi from Reuters, and we have Kent from Kabam here with us today. Thanks so much for joining us, Kent, and we're here to discuss the significant international dimension to the explosive growth of apps across the world. And what we're seeing now is east to west, west to east. There are these app trade routes that are being formed, and we're here to chat about that. So as developers are trying to expand their businesses, we see these app trade routes, and it's almost as though there's no real barrier or boundary to these in today's app economy. When you look at Asia and Europe, about 30% of app developers there target North America, and if you look at North American developers, they make over 60% of their revenue overseas. So Western developers, specifically game developers, what we're seeing right now is a lot of them are looking at Asia as the next big frontier. So why is that? Why is it that Asia is a significant growth area for app developers right now?
Well, first, great question, and it's great to be here with you today, Malathi. Asia is an incredible market. If you think about from a pure device install base, currently there, at least in 2013, there was 820 million mobile devices. That's growing to over 1.9 billion devices in the next 4 years. It's one of the fastest growth rates in terms of device penetration anywhere. And in a very short period of time, Asia will command over 50% of the install base of all mobile devices. It's a phenomenally huge market. And I think anyone in this room who's not thinking about Asia should be. So that you think about that from a kind of a macro perspective of it's just huge. Then for our industry in gaming, it is, and we think about total addressable market and market sizing and all those fun stats, it is currently a bigger market than North America. And we spend so much of our time in North America. Here's a market that's almost 2x the size of North America and commands, on a revenue basis, in 2013 it was about 7 billion and it's growing to about 12 billion. Commands about 50% market share. And we tend to be very focused on North America, Western Europe, but it is such a tremendous opportunity. So when you talk about why, it's because that's kind of where there is fastest growth, biggest market opportunity, and biggest from a pure, kind of from our consumer base, kind of the largest consumer base. So that's the why. You could get into the how, which is a lot more challenging. Right? Because being a US-based company,
it's definitely a tough market to crack.
Yes, it's a very tough market to crack for a number of reasons. One, we think about in North America, Western Europe, the platforms are relatively simple. We have Google and Android, we have iOS, then small inroads from some other players, whether it's Microsoft, Amazon, etc. But it's relatively simple. We know what the markets are, we know who the players are, we know all the different aspects of our business and how to kind of move into those spaces. In Asia, and specifically China, the Android market is incredibly fragmented. There are a whole myriad of different companies who have huge market positions and can command a lot of power in those regions. So you have market fragmentation, you have marketing fragmentation, you have different device types, and the plans and the data plans and the amount that you can kind of push in terms of content and delivery is very different. You have firewall issues, you have hosting issues, you have payment issues. So there's a whole myriad of kind of things you have to address in order to get into that market. But if you can get into it, it's a tremendous opportunity.
How do you work around those challenges? Maybe if you could speak a bit from Kabam's experience, how you guys have maybe tailored your marketing, strategies and things like that just to focus on growing in Asia.
So I would say that we're in the kind of the initial stages of kind of opening up that market for Kabam. When we first started launching our mobile games, we had just, without even trying, 1 to 2% of our user base was coming from Asia. Clearly not a big slice of the addressable market. In the last number of years, we've focused on localizing everything that we do into various languages throughout Asia. And I view that as kind of step one. You have hosting issues and connectivity speeds as kind of another issue, so we focused on that. You have content, what the consumer experience is for those regions, which is a level of complexity as you kind of unpeel that onion that you have to deal with. So we've started to take the first steps there. And we've taken those steps, which has increased our market share from about 2% to, with our recent games, 10 to 11%. But it's still not where it could be.
Definitely.
So for Kabam, as well as a number of other kind of Western gaming companies, I know that we're just still in the initial stages of taking those steps. There are some companies who have had tremendous success and who have focused a great deal in terms of truly culturalizing their products for the region, and it's paid off. You look at what Plants vs. Zombies has done, revenue, what you could actually track and see through App Annie is 25% of the overall game's revenue is coming from China. And that's what's reported. And with all the different Android stores, you can't track that revenue, so it could be much higher. So you think about what the opportunity is, if done right, it's tremendous. So we are constantly taking one step after another to really open up the market in terms of bringing our products from the West to Asia.
When you look at some Asian companies, take for example Beijing-based FunPlus, which is a gaming company as well, majority of their revenue comes from outside of China, though they're a Chinese company. And when you look at the app charts out in Asia, we don't really see a lot of Western developers or businesses cementing top positions on the app charts. Maybe there are some examples, you talked about Plants vs. Zombies or say Minecraft and things like that. But what does it really take to get it right? If FunPlus can sort of look out west and try and build businesses by targeting a Western audience, like what does it really take for a Western developer to get it right and capture growth in Asia?
So let me start with, there's a tremendous market of companies who are trying to harness the great content and applications that are made in the West and bring them to Asia. iDreamSky is another example that just announced their desire to go public, and their business model is bringing Western content to Asia. So there are companies who are building businesses around just being able to solve these issues because they're complex. What does it take? It takes a deep understanding of the cultural differences for the specific application. So our applications are games. So it's everything from the UI, the user experience, the game balance, the art style, and it kind of goes all the way through the experience from a consumer perspective. And that takes a big investment. And it's something, as I mentioned, Plants vs. Zombies, the game was culturalized, kind of hit it out of the park in terms of doing it right. Most Western companies to date haven't taken those necessary steps. And I think, as you see for the company that you mentioned, iDreamSky, others, there is a progression towards getting it right. And whether it's done through third parties or building those competencies in-house, I think you're going to see a lot more Western companies take those steps. So content, and then it gets into distribution, which is also a tremendous opportunity for anyone in this room because it's fragmented. And it's hard for Western companies to go in and deploy marketing dollars or anything else in the same way that they have in Western markets. So if someone could help, maybe someone in this room could help solve those issues on how can we market efficiently, how can we have the same rigor, the same analytics, and deploy marketing dollars in those regions, it would be tremendously beneficial. So I think that there is some market fragmentation on the marketing. It clearly is on the distribution. So I think that there are both challenges as well as opportunities for those companies that can figure it out.
Definitely, and you talked about distribution, and out east we also see some other interesting distribution platforms for games like chat messenger apps, Kakao, WeChat. We also see some other apps that sort of leverage the monetization power of games. So, so when you look at those apps, developers have to pay 30% to iOS and Android, and then 20% to the app itself, which acts as a game distribution platform. But is that an exciting proposition for Western developers to sort of try and capture growth? I know King has its Candy Crush game on Kakao, for instance, but that's sort of a different area altogether in terms of being a chat messenger app or a different sort of app that acts as a game distribution platform. So is that an exciting opportunity for developers out here in the West?
I would say the opportunity is tremendous. If you look at what Line, Kakao, the potential of WeChat, and I would even open up to other types of platforms that are out there, such as Chihu, which is a security application, which is created a game platform around it. These platforms have been able to kind of harness the monetization capabilities of free-to-play gaming and add those to their otherwise free applications. And I think that the window is wide open. Messaging is great because it's social, it's communal, it's viral, and you can tap into those components of a game that kind of have that same component to it. And if you can kind of marry those kind of gaming components along with the right platform, it's a home run. And so if you look in the Korean market, a number of the top 10 games have always been a certain game by Kakao, because it is the power of these platforms to draw users in. So then the question you asked about that kind of the splitting of the economics. If a Line or a Kakao is taking a certain percentage, you can think about that almost as marketing. Right? We as a company build a product, we spend marketing dollars, and then the platforms, Apple, Google, et cetera, are taking their 30%. If I could get a company who would do all that marketing for me, I'd be willing to do that and give them the economic share of it. So, I don't know the specific case of all the different companies who have launched on those platforms, but the ability to get the free users and drive those installs is definitely valuable. And for those companies who have done it, as you've seen, on the top of the charts, it's clearly paid off.
Yeah, we've seen companies like Sunday Toast, for example, which is the king of Korea, which has a game just like Candy Crush, and those guys had a successful IPO. Do you think, how far along are we before Western developers really are able to sort of muscle onto, the turf of Asian developers and really build an established, a sustainable business out there?
I think we're right around the corner from it. I think that, I think a lot of people, I think it's hard, as I mentioned before, so I don't think every company's going to get it right. But I think the companies that do get it right will build structural advantage for themselves and the associated enterprise value of the company. That it's something that they can kind of invest behind. So I do think that you'll see some big successes. I predict 2015 is a year that you start to see Western companies truly be on the top of the charts in Asia.
And in terms of Kabam, you guys have been stepping up your efforts in Asia. You have an office in Seoul now, and if you could talk a bit about that. And I know you have a developer fund as well, where you have partnered with Asian game developers. So how important are partnerships to building businesses in Asia, and then also maybe bringing Asian games to the Western audience?
So we view partnerships in Asia as critically important to our market entry strategy.
How do you go about finding the right partner? I mean, there are many of them, and you need to find someone, because it's hard to understand the market. I'm guessing having a partner definitely helps.
Absolutely helps, and having the right partner helps. And it's cultural alignment, alignment of interest, financial alignment. So it is critically important to have those partnerships, both, as you mentioned, that we not only bring our content to Asia, but we bring Asian content west. We had announced a $50 million fund to invest in Asian developers and bring their content west, and we've had tremendous success. Our publishing team is, I would call, one of the best in the industry, has delivered tremendous growth for us as a company, specifically focusing on those great developers in Asia and bringing them west. In terms of what we're doing in terms of entering Asia, we have close to 300 people in Beijing. We have an office in Seoul. It's really trying to understand those specific markets, putting live operations, marketing, and people on the ground who understand the cultural nuances and differences in each market.
I also find the whole art of game making very interesting. And how does a Western game developer really speak to an Asian audience in terms of localization? How do you take a game and really make it something that's appealing to a Western audience? From your experience, if you could maybe give us an example of a game or something that would be helpful.
Sure. Well, I mean, what's great about our business is this concept of free-to-play gaming or freemium gaming originated in Asia. Right? So we've adopted a practice that's been going on for 15 years in Asia. And so some of the best practices are taking place there that we're adopting. So from a kind of a meta game system, it's that consumer base is already accustomed to those types of gameplay. But then it gets into the content. And what we take as cultural lore, we have a game called Kingdoms of Camelot, Arthurian lore. That's something that we've all heard of, and it's kind of nuanced in terms of kind of our psyche. It has no resonance in Asia, whereas Three Kingdoms in China is huge, right? But that has no resonance here. So you have to be able to make sure that you are bringing content that resonates with the consumer base, that has a gameplay that resonates with the consumer base. And I think that you start to see, I mentioned Plants vs. Zombies. Eternity Warriors was another game that has over 53% of its revenue coming from Asia from a Western game developer. There are types of games out there that are starting to crack into those markets, and I think the opportunity is huge.
Absolutely, we just have a few seconds to go, but I definitely wanted to ask you, you talked a bit about free-to-play games and how the Western developers have sort of adopted that from Asia. So what can we really take when we try and sort of, muscle onto the Asian turf? What can Western game developers really have to offer?
I think if you look at Western game developers and Western content creators, we are amazingly great at creating fidelity, immersive worlds, story, and it's something, if you look at all the great game companies from EA to Blizzard, that's what we do. That's part of the kind of the culture of gaming in Western markets, and that's something that we definitely can bring to Asia.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ken. This is really great, and definitely looking forward to seeing how this shift pans out and how Western game developers sort of make their way into the Asian market.
Thank you.
Thank you.